Welcome back, everyone. I'm Carrington-Russell, an Australian award-winning author of kick-butt heroines and action-packed, steamy romance, dark fantasy worlds. And I have a very special guest for you today. We are talking elf, we are talking fae, we are talking gargoyle, we are talking aliens, and we are talking griffin, steamy romance in amazing fantasy worlds. We are talking to the one and only Miranda Bridges. How are you today?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to have you on because your books look hot and I can't wait to talk about them. So I'd like you to take me back to the start and tell me how you started writing and how publishing was for you.
I started, I wasn't one of those people that was like came out of the womb writing. Like I dabbled here and there, but nothing took. And I tried in my late 20s. I was like, "Oh, I have an idea. I'll start writing it." I wrote like three sentences and I was like, this is crap. This is not what I was meant to do with my life. Put it away. And then several years later came back and was like, "I have a story idea. It won't leave me alone. I know. I'll write it. It'll be crap and then it'll go away." And then I wrote a crappy, still crappy, but it did not go away, 90,000 word young adult that is going to forever remain in the closet. And I was like, I have this thing. What do I do with it? And so I started doing what people do, which is like querying and stuff like that. Oh God, that's so embarrassing. Because you don't query with your first book. Everybody knows that, I think. If not, don't do it. Maybe no. You know what? Some people are excellent. I was not excellent. I had a lot to learn, still do. And so for me, I found the world of indie publishing, and I was like, oh well, I need to learn. I have so much to learn. So what I'm going to do is just I'm a learn by doing person. So I said, well, I'm going to go do my best, throw them up there. Can't, I mean, what's the worst that could happen? People don't read it. They don't like it. And so I did that. And the thing is, I got into a couple of Facebook groups and I saw people were doing well. And I was like, what's this? What's happening? And so my first couple books failed miserably. And I got so pissed. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I know I can do this. But I'm not doing this, obviously. And so I went and studied the market and I said, what do I like about this market? And I found sci-fi romance and I was like, okay, I'm not really into like strange looking creatures, but I do like otherworldly things. And so I said, well, so I grabbed a bunch of basically fantasy heroes and threw them in outer space. So that's why I have elves and griffins and gargoyles and stuff. And I threw them in outer space. And I said, well, because I believe in writing what you love, but because it's really hard. I think after a while the passion will die if it's like not if it's not an internal drive. It's doable, but I find it hard for myself. And so I tried again, and it went well. It was received very well, and so then it was kind of like an avalanche where I was like skiing and things were happening and it was all happening so fast. So all I did was just like race the market. I just kept like publishing book after book after book after book after book, and then I was like, I'm really tired of this and I'm going to try something else. And then as you learn your footing, right, in your publishing journey, you kind of like, oh well, this is kind of where I belong. And so now I'm like solid. I'm like, okay, Miranda's where we need to be and what we love, and we're good. So now I feel like more stable, but before it was just this whirlwind of all this stuff is happening. And because I knew that I could do it, but I didn't think I would do it as well as it happened.
Yeah.
And I was also scared I would be a one-hit wonder, and I didn't want that to happen either. So I kept going to like, well, I better hurry and like get everything I can out of this since it's going really well. And then it just continued to go well. So I was like, well, all right then. So now it's my full-time thing.
What year was your first book published?
So like my first couple of books, they're still on my Amazon profile because those bitches owe me money. You know what I mean? But but I don't think about them. My first sci-fi romance was published in October of 2019. So I'm like what, 2.5 years in. So
And when did you go full time?
well, I was writing as a stay-at-home mom. So I mean, I guess it also depends on what do you consider full time. But did I make enough money to be considered full time? Because technically I was already home, or did was it money or whatever? But whatever the full time thing was, okay. But I was making six figures within 6 months.
That's amazing. That is so amazing, especially when I think when we first step into this as authors that we don't actually realize what's involved, especially when it comes to marketing, because we've just done the creative part of it. There's a lot of money to invest in having covers, figuring out what that process is. And then after publishing, you realize there's this whole new world of having to market it and publish it. And to have that kind of turnaround in 6 months shows, one, how brilliant your books are, but two, how dedicated you were to making it work for yourself as well. So that's an amazing turnaround, and congratulations. What were some of the resources that you would recommend for authors who are watching, that you were on this group and you found great success from it, or you read these books and they gave you a lot of insight?
I think it depends on your motivation, right? So if you want to be known for craft, you would probably want to get craft books and take courses, and I did want that, and I do want that. I still want to do that, but I have decided to take a long-term journey on the craft portion, which is every book I try to make it better than the last, as opposed to like maybe dedicating like a year to studying craft and whatever, because my motivation and my goal is to support my family. I was a stay-at-home mom for over 10 years and made no money. And even though my job was vital and important, I wanted something for myself. And so when I started to get that within the comfort of my home, I couldn't stop to do craft. So you'll see in the progression of my books, hopefully, that the craft starts at one level and hopefully we've leveled up, throughout the last 2.5 years. So for me, what drove me was going into the other Facebook groups and seeing that it was possible, that seeing that other people were doing it, and then going and reading their books and going, oh, okay, this is a brilliant concept. How can I make that my own? Or, okay, they're doing this. They're publishing this frequently, or they're writing this trope, or they're doing. So I studied what the successful people were doing, and my definition. Everybody has a different definition of success, but my definition of success is who is, like, for sci-fi in the top 100 SFR. Who is in the top 100 SFR? So then I would read their books, study their covers, study their blurbs, and what I would do is emulate, not copy. Emulate. So like, if you read SFR and you don't know who Ruby Dixon is, I don't. I really, this is not the interview for you, but like, I studied Ruby Dixon, you know what I mean? And I told her that too. I was like, hey, guess what? Like, totally read your books and did my own thing in those veins of like, she's fast paced and humorous, and she has a great community and blah, blah, blah. So I did my own version of that. And I think when you stay true to self, it helps. But I also think if you know what people already want, that helps too.
It's true though, and I absolutely love Ruby Dixon's story, because as majority of us know, Ruby Dixon boomed on TikTok, and she's thrived. You see her everywhere now, which I absolutely love. And I think as well, it's really encouraged and grown that particular niche market as well when it comes to the alien romance and things like that. And I absolutely love that. And I think it is, as you said, studying who the top 100 are, or authors that you love, and definitely not copying them. But there is a market. Readers are already demanding books in vain of that. So you definitely learn a lot from studying that. And I think that's amazing that you learned very quickly to do that within only a couple of months, and said, this is who I need to target, because it often takes a lot of authors a very long time to know what similar authors they are, or what kind of readers they're after at the first. Most people kind of go for the blanket approach, where they're kind of trying to grab anyone because they think everyone will love their books. And although that may be true, unfortunately, it is not most of the time. So you really have to dwindle down to who you're after. One of your books that I would love to talk about, and it grabbed my attention, all your covers are stunning, but Sacrifice is the first book in your War Brides of Morja series. So I would love to talk about that book and where you got the inspiration from.
Okay, so one of the things that I like to do is take somebody else's idea and then make it my own. If you haven't noticed, that's a trend. That's something that I do. So like, if you look at my first series, I was like, I like The Witcher and I like Legolas from Lord of the Rings. So then I just put them in space and made them like super buff. and well endowed. And then so I did that. And then the gargoyles were from the 1990s Disney cartoon. I liked Goliath. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. But it was a cartoon and there were purple gargoyles. So I did that. It's nowhere near the same as in storyline or anything like that, but it's just that little bit of inspiration that I grab that and I run with it. So for this one, it is literally if all the Harry Potter house sigils came to life and became flesh and blood. So the Griffins are, the Morja are the Hogwarts house of Gryffindor. So if you notice, I have an illustrated cover. The woman is wearing red and gold, so she's wearing the house colors of Hogwarts, and the cover is gold because it's one of the colors. And I'm going to do 3 griffins, 3 serpents, 3 beasts, and 3 ravens, and they will all have coordinating colors. And I even went so far as in the world building to give them each their own house name, creed, and their colors and stuff like that. So to really, again, I'm not copying Harry Potter. There is no magic, there is no wizard, anything, but it's just the general like feel of something that I adore. And I feel like that if these things are popular for reasons, and so whatever element that I love from that, and I think it's one of the strongest tropes is like the found family or the feeling of belonging, right? So that's what those houses provide. And so I'm doing the same thing, but within romance. I like psychology a lot. And so when I make decisions based on what I'm going to write and what it's going to be about, I kind of target a lot of those things. So I'm trying to hit certain, if there's something called an id list from Jennifer Lynn Barnes, she talks about it and she refers to them as pleasure buttons. Like, why is fiction so alluring to human beings? And so she goes into this big thing. She's got like 1,000,001 PhDs and she's like brilliant, and she talks about it and she breaks down the neuroscience of that. And she talks about how we each have, as a human being, there are certain things that all human beings, for not all as in like the collect, but like the majority of human beings like things like, so like beauty, competition, and like things like that, right? And so because I know that now, I'm like, okay, what can I do within, of course, keeping true to self, but what can I do to appeal to people on a subconscious level that they're not even aware of? So I probably sound insane, but it's okay.
I completely understand that. And honestly, I love talking about psychology when it comes to characters and books, because unknowingly or most of the time, some of us authors do intentionally put in subliminal messages or themes, or as you were saying. And I think it's important to be aware of that kind of reaction to really understand your character and, what drives them, why they have particular reactions and triggers and things like that. So there is a lot of that in there. So I kind of love that you are also thinking of what the reader's psychology and attraction towards your book is going to be, which is very clever. Do you plot, or are you a pantser then?
I'm a pantser. I wish that my personality is a very like dress right dress personality. And so believe you me, when I discovered that I couldn't plot to save my life, I mean, we as in me and all my like scallop strengths, we were all pissed because I was like, well, this is how it's supposed to be. You plot, then you know where you go. You step A, step B, step C. It's not a hard thing. And I'm like, okay, ready, go. And I'm like, wait, I don't know. Like, I literally go into stuff with a concept. I'm just glad that there are other pantsers out there, because sometimes I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous. So I'll say, okay, well, there's a girl and a guy, and they're going to be in a gladiatorial, like a training facility, and then they're gonna just like, at some point they're gonna escape. I mean, yeah, and she's gonna have to be in the cell with him at some point, and I don't know, that's it, let's go. I mean, I'm just as shocked. One of my favorite things is when people are like, I didn't see that coming, and I'm like, me neither, because I had no idea. It took me several books to trust my process. I mean, I couldn't do anything else because I couldn't make myself plot. I tried once. It was embarrassing. I had like 3 sentences or 4 maybe. And then my friend at the time, she had like pages. And I was like, I'm doing something wrong here. And I wasn't, but I didn't know enough at the time. So I was like, oh, I'm going to be horrible at this. Okay, well, can't do what I can't do. You don't know what you don't know. So I just was like, well, let's go. And then when it did well and it was received, I was like, okay. So then it was kind of like that, the baby steps of like, you take a step and you get a little bit confident, it's a little shaky. And then the next one's a little bit more firm and secure. And so like, now I just go, I don't know what the hell's going to happen, but it's going to work out. So let's go. And if I get stuck, I find people that are very good at like generating ideas. And so then but I didn't have that in the beginning. So now I'm like, okay, why would somebody be blah, blah, blah? And they're like, well, what if they this? And I'm like, great, that. And then I'll usually, that usually only happens to me like once a book maybe. But the rest of it is just all, I get intuitive, I guess, is what they call that, intuitive writing.
When was the moment then for you that you were like, oh my gosh, I'm an author?
I mean, I'm sure that you get that sense when you push publish for the first time, right? Like you're like, woo! So because it's indie, right? Like because it's indie and the barrier to entry is low, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It is what it is. Like you can literally throw up anything on Amazon. So I mean that, and I'm grateful to Amazon. So not knocking that, but I didn't feel like, money aside, I didn't feel like I could hold my own until Sacrifice came out. And maybe the first time I hit the top 100. I think that one, but even then it was like I fizzled. Like I was like, wee, like a bottle rocket, wee, 48, woo, and then like fizzled out like within like 12 hours or something like that. You know what I mean? So I didn't feel like I was successful, but with Sacrifice, I stayed in the top 100 for over a week. And I was like, okay, so now I'm like, ooh, I got big girl author panties. Like I can hold my own now. So now, now I feel like, okay, we can do this.
I love asking that question because it is a different answer for everyone, because some people go years in their career and it's not until they hit a particular goal or a particular moment or sensation that they're like, wow, I'm really doing this. So I really like to gauge that question as to what that element of success for you looked like at the time. What does your day-to-day process then look like? How long does it roughly take you to write a book?
Well, I have to like be gracious to myself because I started in 2019, October. So what happened a couple months later? Pandemic. I literally have spent 85% of my career in a pandemic. So I have patterns of behavior and I can tell you what they were, what they are now, and then so it looks like that, right? Like, so I used to write, I'm gonna say with the caveat of like when I was first writing, I didn't know as much as I do now. And so I think I'm slower now, not just because of the pandemic, but I think I'm slower now because I'm more articulate. I'm very choosy with the words that I use. I mean, I always have been. I never word vomited, but I feel like now I'm more cognizant of things as I'm writing, right? Like more of the ebb and flow and the sentence structure and where the break is and where the breaths are. And so that takes, I don't know, I just think I put more thought into it now. Whereas before I was like, wee, you know? And so I used to write 1,500 words an hour. And then I would do 3 of those and call it a day. Now in 3 hours, if I get 3,000 words, I'm like, I'm a superstar. Like, oh, Jesus. Like, it's so hard now. Like, and 3,000 word days were not even a thing until like a couple weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago. So it's taken me, so during the pandemic, I dipped down a lot. I also had my kids home for a year, like both of them, me and them. I wasn't an alcoholic. So like, I'm really proud of that. If you want to, like, when did you become a mom? When I didn't drink the whole pandemic. I was good. I did a good job. I get a gold star for that. While maintaining a 6-figure author business. But yeah. So anyway, so now I can tell that I'm starting to climb again. Like I can hit between 100, 1,000. Like shit. Like, oh my gosh. And I'm not putting people down that don't write as fast. I understand we all come with our own speeds and talents and stuff. I'm just talking about my metrics. And so now I'm doing between 1,000 to 1,200 an hour. And I'm like, okay. That last hour is a bitch though. Like, I'm like, oh, come on. But it's still, I can get it there. I just try not to push because of how how much we've all gone through the last, as creatives especially, like not just parents and people, but as creatives it's been rough, right? Like some people it didn't affect them, but for some of us it did. And so for me, I'm like, I'm coming out of it. So I'm hoping to go back to that. But if I don't, I've already made peace with it because our process is going to change, right? Like somebody told me that. They're like, you're going to always be fixing your process. You're never going to really have it solid. And I was like, and you can go suck on that because I want to be as efficient as possible. And then I realized that they were right. And so then I was like, oh yeah, because I'm still constantly learning about how this works. And then the platform changes, right? Like now there's Kindle Vella and then now there's Obwa, and then you're just like, oh, okay. As you can see, I don't adapt very well.
That's the interesting part about this industry too, because I was about to say the exact same thing. Processes always change. My process has changed so many times. I'm in at the moment changing my process as we speak because life changes and you often have to change around it because we're not doing a 9 to 5. We're not going to an office per se. We often have to adapt our working schedule also around a personal life because they're so close to home. A lot of us work at home with our family. So easily having those distractions and commitments change. So as authors, we have that flexibility to move it around, our priorities as well, which is awesome. But it is interesting as well, as you were saying, it's hard to adapt sometimes because we do have all these different things changing. There's always something new, do we try that? This has worked for this author. Should I give that a go? And it is that time versus money, time, literally time, everything's time. But, where do you place that focus? So one thing I do want to talk a little bit about, which is usually a huge time consumer for a lot of authors, is social media. So specifically, I want to talk a little bit about TikTok with you because I love your videos. You crack me up. You're very much in the spicy talk rabbit hole, I want to say. But what had you gravitate towards TikTok? And do you have any advice for authors who are watching?
So I'm a very late adapter, like on the scale, the standard deviation. I'm like late majority. So I like to see things work first before I go in. I want to see that there's proof. I'm never an innovator. Maybe one day, but no. And so I didn't do the TikTok because I'm like old, right? I didn't do TikTok because I wanted to make sure that it worked and it was worth my time because when I commit, I try to commit 100%. Like I try to give it everything that I have. And as we know, technology changes so rapidly. And so, I mean, again, aging myself, there's like before MySpace and then there's MySpace and then Facebook and then Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, oh, well, I need to see if this is a passing phase or not. And so I see what it's doing for people. And I said, well, I'm like, to borrow your language, I'm going to give it a go. So my advice about TikTok is if it's not for you, don't do it. Don't force it. If you don't like being in front of the camera, then don't. Do page flips with quotes. If you like being in front of the camera, do it. If your videos don't get views, it's hard not to take it personal when you're doing the skits and stuff, right? Because it's your face and stuff. Don't take it personal. Maybe it's just not resonating, or maybe they're just not there to see that, or maybe the algorithm's just being a dick. I mean, it could be a number of things. But have I seen it change? I have never gone viral, and I would call viral like 100,000 views. Or even a mini viral, which would be like 50,000. Those are my metrics. I've never gone viral or mini viral, but on the couple times that I've had videos that have had like 10,000 or 20,000 views, I can see my sales go up. Mm-hmm. So it does work. And because there's so much money that you have to, well, you don't have to, but there's so much money that you can spend on your platform. Yeah. And so because TikTok is essentially money free, unless you want to convert it into the matter of time, then of course it's not. But in a monetary sense, it's free marketing. And so I think that it's worth trying if you think that it'd be something you would like to do. But it will not break your career if you don't. It can only enhance it. So if you don't find that it's working for you in that sense, I wouldn't do it. I've never really done Instagram and I haven't really noticed a difference. And then I did TikTok. I do it. I like TikTok as like a a user, right? Like I like it. I sit there and giggle like an idiot. The first time I got on it, I lost 2 hours, and my husband's like, "You just sat there and laughed for 2 hours. Like, are you okay?" And I was like, "This is the best." So I do like the platform. I find the algorithm changes hard to deal with because I'll be going steadily along and my views will be going well. They'll change the algorithm, and then it's like I can't get it to work. And so the lack of control is very frustrating. But what I can control is what I write. And what I can control is what I publish. And what I can control is marketing in the sense of like the monetary, like I can commit this many dollars or whatever. So when I get frustrated with TikTok because of the lack of control that it offers, then I kind of switch my focus to something that I can have access, complete and total control and access over. Because at the end of the day, it's not my platform, right? Like it's TikTok's. So, but I told myself when I went on TikTok that as much as I would love to go viral and I would love this and this and that, my goal was to find the next generation of readers because they're not on Facebook, not all of them, or the large majority. And so if I want to find new people to like my books, then I need to go where they are. So I chased them on TikTok and made an idiot out of myself, and I love it. And I do it when I can. Like I'll do the little skits when I can, because page flips are a lot easier and less time consuming. But I like, obviously I like performing because I'm like, oh, and then, and so I put all that, whatever that is, I put all that in TikTok. And so I'm like, well, if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't.
I do want to talk about something that's quite difficult for a lot of authors, and that is blurbs. So I love your write-ups. As I was going through your catalogue and your books, from this first line, you've grabbed me. You've got the hook straight away, and then you continue down. So what advice do you have for authors who struggle with writing blurbs or they haven't written the first one yet?
Going back to the marketing thing, I went and saw what Ruby Dixon was, what were her blurbs? So was she writing in first person? Was she writing in third person? Was it present? Was it past? What was she doing? Her blurb was short, it was snappy. And that, so before I picked her, I had read other people. And it wasn't because she was the most successful that I targeted her. Amongst successful authors, she was the closest to me in, let's just say, personality. That would be probably the best way to describe it. In personality, or the way that she executed, that was what I needed. So when I looked at her blurb, it was like one of those, like a natural fit, right? So for me, when I saw that, all I did was take the details from what she did. So I was like, oh, well, she writes short and snappy. She writes it from the female point of view. She whatever, and that's what I went and did. As the platform evolves, then I brought kind of like try to widen my scope, right? So then it become not what is Ruby doing. It was like, what are other people doing? What is enticing? What is enticing to me as a reader? Because majority of us are readers first, writers second. And so then I'm like, okay, well, what are other people doing? Oh, I like this line. That's a really good line. But what is it? So like, it's the deep dive into the words. It is, because they're not just words. Different words evoke different emotions. So if I were to say, this person is aggressive versus this person is a savage, like as a romance reader, we gravitate towards that. We're like, oh, savage, yum, okay, great. But we don't want aggressive. We're like, well, that could be. So because of the nuances of words, and because that is a natural talent that I have of figuring out the nuances of words, I gravitate towards, I call them power words or evocative words, and not in a sexual content, but just in general. So when I do that, I try to pick those words that I know are going to spark some type of residual within, like, because romance readers want certain things. And so whatever your market is, like, since I'm doing romance, it's like, it's like that whole, like the high stakes, life or death, like possession. But if I was writing fantasy, I would use words like destiny, or like her ability, like magical abilities, or like, king, princess, whatever. Like, and so depending on the genre, certain words go with it. And so I try to align that. But one thing that I've always tried to do is I've always been honest with myself and with what I provide. And so I always take the voice of the heroine and I always put it on the blurb, because I'm like, if you don't like what you're reading, you won't like you won't like this book, because all that is just 50,000 words of what you just read. So if you like that, thumbs up. But if you don't, it's not the book for you. Because I don't ever want people to be like, you bait and switched me. I'm like, nah, bro, it was on there. She was being a sassy whatever pants from the beginning. So you knew going in that's what was happening. And I'm not ashamed to say that I know people buy blurbs or buy some, like hire somebody to do your blurb. I feel like the bigger that your platform becomes, the more you have to learn to outsource. And it's really hard. It's hard for me. I'm a control freak. So for me, I do the things that I'm good at, and then I'm slowly learning to delegate the rest. So for me, my advice about blurbs would be all that crap that I just said about words. If you want to go that deep, but if you can't, just find somebody else to do it for you. Like, and then tweak it to make it your own voice, so that my opinion is have it match what's in the book. Because if you have this beautiful blurb and then they go inside and it's like, and then they're going to be upset.
What would you say, in your personal experience so far, what has been the most surprising thing you found in the publishing industry so far?
It sounds really lame, but I really didn't think people would love my books as much as they do. I get making money, and I get being entertained. I do, but I didn't expect to be that successful. And because I didn't go to school for it. I have a college degree, but it's not in anything that has to do with literature. I didn't write my whole life like some people. The only thing that prepared me for this job was I read like a crazy person. Like, I have been reading romance, sneaking them since like probably 10. And I cringe to think about my kids reading stuff like that when they were 10, although I read Regency, so it was a lot more tame, but still not appropriate. And so that's the only thing I can say that got me ready for this job. So I fell in love with books, and there's so much, like when you see fandoms and stuff, like what happened to Ruby Dixon and Hogwarts and all the stuff that's going on with Sarah J. Maas, there's so much passion involved for this imaginary stuff that like, but it shows the power of imagination and how stories and stuff can change lives. And so I just didn't think that my books, because they're shorter and they're like fun, like fast-paced, rompy, whatever. I didn't think they would not change lives as in like I saved somebody's life, not like that. But I didn't think they would have an impact at all. But people during the pandemic did tell me because my books, I might be a little bit over the top, but I try to be funny in my books. And so one of my favorite things is seeing that people laughed a lot, whether they're laughing with me or at me, well, who knows, but they laugh, and they said that they really enjoyed it, and they were able to escape for a little while, and that it made them smile and brought joy to their life. And so that, I did not anticipate that.
Has there been a particular most memorable reader moment for you, one that really just is like your number one?
Yeah. Yep. So I wrote a heroine who had OCD, and I really wanted to, because I feel like we all have things going on. We all have things, and I really wanted to showcase that, but I wanted to do it justice, and I wanted to honor it. But most of all, I didn't want to change it, because one of the things that I hate when you have a mental illness is when people tell you, well, just get over it, or just don't think about it, or just whatever. And so that was a key thing for me. It was making sure that nobody told her, just get over it. Like, I really I wanted her to be loved because of it, not in spite of it. And so I wrote that book, and so she counts, like she has a nervous tick of counting. And so a reader reached out to me, and she's like, I have OCD. I don't count, but I get so nervous that I'll like pluck my hair out, and I will like stuff like that. So she goes, I have never seen anybody on the page that sounded like me, and that that understood that I can't help it. And I was just like, eh. So and so that made me, because I wrote it because I thought it was interesting, and I wrote it because I wanted to represent, and I wrote it because, and also I like new different things. And so I was like, oh, this is so like, okay, I can learn about this, and I'll be more mindful going forward, and blah, blah, blah. But I didn't expect any impact. I was just like, well, this makes her different, right? Like, this makes her stand out. She's not mouthy, she's different. And so when that reader reached out to me and told me that, I was like, and so like it took me 5 gazillion years to put my stuff up on paperback, because I'm like, I'll get there. But recently I sent her a signed copy of that and told her, like, I really appreciate you like inspiring me. And like, this is when I knew that I was making an impact. Like, this is when I knew that my books could change lives, or at least uplift somebody, even if it's for that, like that moment. I was like, I'm there for that. And then like she, cause I messaged her on Facebook and she was telling me I'm crying ugly tears. And I was like, I'm about to too. So like, that was really, I mean, that was just, I haven't had anything like that since. And so that was really special to me.
One thing I always talk about is, and I think some people might find it bizarre, but I talk about being the responsibility of being an author as well, because especially when you have gone past writing a couple of books and you're publishing them, you have a voice, it's being read, other people are relating to it. So I think we do have a platform where we can be inclusive, where we can create different characters, where in a time, prior to that, we didn't have so much diversity and we weren't including, as you said, somebody who might have this particular mental health. It's really nice to be able to encapsulate that and honor that and have somebody feel seen because of what you've written. It's a very powerful thing. And that's what I talk about, like being responsible as authors. We have that voice and we have that platform, and it's amazing that you could do that for somebody and have that connection with them. So I think it's one of the most magical parts about being an author. I would love to know what your personal challenges and personal accomplishment has been so far.
My personal challenge is always my impatience. I want to write faster. I want to publish more. I want to rise in the ranks. I want to write a bestseller. I want to do all this stuff. And books take a long time. They just do, I'm just so impatient. And then there's the whole like, the trajectory of growth doesn't stay the same. Like, as much as I would love for it to do this, that is not reality. It can go like this for a period of time, but usually, life is like the stock market. Like, it's either going to go like this on a upward trajectory, but not, or it might it can do whatever. But the idea is, in my career, it's going like this, you know what I mean? And so weathering through the downs I struggle with that. Like, if a book doesn't hit well, I struggle. If my TikTok things don't take off, I'm like, well, so the performance, how does my performance land? I find that hard, because then that's when it supersedes the money, because it's more of like, they don't like it, which in turn means I don't make any money. But at first, the first thing that hits me is, oh, they don't like it. Oh, and then I get really pissed because I'm like, well, I just wasted my whole time doing this thing. And it's not even like, because books are not like, you can't just throw up a chapter and be like, okay, everybody read that and tell me if you like it. And then I'll keep going. Okay. We're all in, right? We write the book, we write the series, and then we go for it. And then we're like, oh, sweet baby Jesus, please go. And so for me, it's they're not failures, but they feel like them at the time. And so weathering those, not giving up, carrying forward, picking yourself up, and not staying in that. There's a time to like pivot and stuff, but I'm just talking about the overall journey of not giving up. Like, I find that it's not that I ever want to give up, it's just that I get so upset, and it takes me a minute to like get over that, because as creatives, it's really hard to write when you're pissed or upset or whatever. And so like, when I don't do well, I'm like, well, now I have to go have a pity party and get it out, and then come back and be like, okay, fuck this, we're gonna do it, it's fine, we've got it. But from that part, from the pity to the powerful, that journey in between, that's rough. Yeah. It's rough.
You're so seeing right now.
So that's the most challenging part that I have.
What has been your greatest accomplishment so far?
My book being in the top 100 for over a week. Wow. I was like stoked. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. Like, I told you, I bottle rocket, right? Like, literally I was in the top 100 for like 12 hours. And so to do it for an entire week, I was like, I've arrived. So that's kind of like my whatever, the height of my career so far. Yeah. And since it just happened in February, I'm still kind of riding. Actually, that's not true. I'm not riding that high anymore. I'm like, okay, what's next? And it's like, oh, geez, Louise, you just did the thing. And I'm like, yeah, well, that was yesterday. what are we doing now? So the drive is, I think the drive is the best part of me, and it's the worst part of me.
I do have a segment called Speed Dating with an Author. You and I are going to go on a very romantic date. I lit a candle. I've created ambience. Swoon. So basically what it is 5 rapid questions. Are you ready? You look so scared.
So yeah, I hope so. So it's fine. It's fine. Let's go.
What is the clumsiest moment you've ever had?
Clumsy, like physical, because verbally, I'm clumsy all the time. I always have my foot in my mouth. And that was one of the reasons why I was like, this isn't going to be live, is it? Because I'm going to whatever myself on accident. So I lived in that land of clumsy.
What would you say are the 3 words that best describe you?
Friendly, hardworking. I guess it's like a hyphenated thing. And I would say loyal.
What is your life motto?
I'm pretty old school on that. Like I'm a very like treat others the way you want to be treated type thing. Like I really, that's why I just try to be fair in those things, I like be respectful and stuff because authoring is hard enough. I don't think we all need to be the things that I see out there. I'm not interested. So for me, it's just treat others the way you want to be treated, and it usually solves or negates any problems. So,
yep. Yeah. Perfect. What is the song that best describes you?
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Oh my gosh.
Who is that?
I don't know, but I love that song. My husband would know. He used to play it all the time, and I was like, that's the shit. I love that. And he's not even like competitive. I'm competitive. He's not. And I'm like, you don't deserve to have that ringtone because you don't care about winning. And he's like, but I do anyway. And I'm like, you know what? Listen here. So, but yeah, I don't always win, but I strive to.
What is a unique talent or skill set that you have that not a lot of people know about?
I'm not going to do it, but I can sing decent. I used to get in my church choir. I used to like play the part of Mary at Christmas programs and have solos and stuff like that. And I went to All-State in high school, and I sing soprano, but I went to All-State as an alto. So I think I carry a tune.
I would say you certainly can. Wow, I'm so disappointed you're not going to sing for us. So I'm pretty sure.
We would need some music and maybe a little bit of margaritas, and then I would sing my face off for you. But
I'll be the backup dancer. I'll be like, "Hey, go girl, go girl."
Yeah, so I would think the singing, because people used to ask me, "Are you going to do anything with that?" And I was like I know where my talents lie, and I knew that I was good, but I was not good enough to like make it all the way. So my brain was like, "Why would we try if we're not going to win?" So we didn't. But I'm happy that. I'm okay with it, like having that little secret, like, sound good when I'm in the car. Yeah, I'm like, oh, concert of one, that's fine. I sing for me. My kids are like, Mom, they don't recognize. I'm like, I could be off key. You don't even know. And they're like, but anyway, so yeah, so I can hold a tune.
I have had so much fun today. Thank you so much for coming on. And what do you have coming out, and where do we stalk you?
Okay, I love to be stalked. Okay, so I'm like, I welcome all of that. You can stalk me on TikTok. I think it's Miranda Bridges or something. I don't know. Just type my name, you'll find it. And then I'm on Facebook, Miranda Bridges author. I have a website. My PA is working on it. I'm like, but mostly like Amazon. I'm exclusive because I'm Kindle Unlimited. I'm exclusive to Amazon, so I like being found there. I'm pretty friendly, so you can message me on any of the platforms, and I'll be like, hi. And what's coming out? So, Sacrifice, the Brides of Morja, War Brides of Morja came out in February. The second one came out in March, and then I have the third one coming out in 8 days. Actually, I'm going to pull it forward.
Oh.
I know.
Look at me. I was like trying to show you my stalking skills. I was like, yeah, girl, I know what date you're coming out. And then you're like,
I mean, that is correct. I haven't changed it on Amazon. I'm waiting to get it back from my editor before I make the change because I don't want to like screw myself. But yeah, it should come out the 20th. And then that'll be a complete set. And then since I'm moving in the summer, I'm not going to be publishing for the summer months, but then I'm going to rapid release the we would call them Slytherins, but I'm not going to call them that because I don't really want to get sued by J.K. Rowling. But the serpents, I'm going to write the serpents and put them one after the other in the fall.
Well, I am so excited to see what's coming out and continue watching your TikToks because they make me laugh. But again, thank you so much for coming on, and who knows, watch your space. We might get you on next year.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me. This was so fun. I was like, I can be on all the time. You're like, no.
No, I'm like, hello, you bestie.
I'm like, oh, is this my new TikTok? Forget TikTok. I'm going to hang out with you every day. And you're like, no.
I'm okay with that. We would never get any work done, but I'm fine with that.
It's true. No, but seriously, thank you so much. I really had a good time. So, and I hope that whoever watches this, if any of it helped, like I will be really pleased. Even if you just laughed, I'll take that too. But if not, I hope something helped, because at the end of the day, we're all in the same boat, trying to make our dreams work and all that stuff. That way, you don't want to get all like sentimental, like, oh, it's from the heart and all this. But it really is. It comes from what we write, comes from within. So hopefully it helps you on your journey.
Thank you for giving us your pearls of wisdom. And I'm sure you've definitely made a lot of people laugh today. So thank you for that too.
Awesome. My pleasure.
Bye, guys.